Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Umbrella Academy Season 4, Episode 2. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things are down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, I was initially right, but then ended up being wrong in multiple ways. First and foremost, turns out Ben did, in fact, dose everyone. I thought that's what that scene was set up to be, but I was like, oh, the way it played, I was like, oh, I guess Ben's the only one. I'm like, would he worry about giving everyone else their powers back? But as he says later on, he's like, I was trying to do it for everyone else. It's like, they are the only family he's got left. So despite his his apprehension towards it, he does, I think in his own way, he was being selfish because like, right, I want to help myself, I want to feel powerful again and be special again. But he also heard all the gripes and groans from the rest of his family. It's like, you guys aren't happy, you're pretending to be happy, but it's like you kind of miss some of that spark from the previous life and everything. So he was kind of mainly doing it for himself, but I do believe on some level there was part of him trying to do it for the rest of them as well. So I did kind of look at the container of the Marigold last episode, being like, it did look a little less full when Ben poured his shot, but I was like, maybe that's just my imagination. It's like, no, he did in fact drug everyone, and everyone's dealing with it like a massive hangover on top of getting their powers back. To be fair, all this was like set in motion while they were babies, so it is a different situation. I mean, I guess it's a parallel to make would be like The Boys, like taking Compound V at an older age is a lot more dangerous, right? So maybe it's kind of a similar thing, because like they're having like the most adverse reactions. I think it's like you were born with this versus like you're just getting it now, so like it's a lot more like it had time to like work its way through your system, I guess, as a baby as you grow older, versus like it's hitting you like a ton of bricks all at once. I thought was interesting because I brought this point up last episode too, like, oh, Luther's just going to get super strong, his body won't go hairy, because that was a byproduct of his dad trying to save his life. That's not naturally how his body was, but he does kind of get like his body back. Like, is he not like, I wonder, did they just change that aesthetically? Because I'm like, he doesn't look as big, so that's why I was like, wasn't like his body like even bigger like after the original, like after his father saved their life? But he does seem like smaller, so like maybe it's just not as concentrated as what his dad did to him. But I was like, because I thought that was a byproduct of what his dad did, but maybe that's like the natural progression of his powers. Like maybe it's supposed to represent an extension of his power, that it became a part of who he was, and now it's encoded in his DNA. So that was another point I was making too. I was like, are we going to go down, spoilers, the Misfits route where people who switch up powers? Seemed like we only got that with Lila, who's got a whole new power. To be fair, her power was mimicking other people's powers, so she has a power of her own, because we don't know if she still has a mimicry power, or whether it's just like now she just has like straight up laser vision now. So green laser vision, which we've never seen before. So I'm curious if that's just going to be like the only thing she got, because it does seem like the others' abilities have kind of gotten warped a little bit. Like Ben initially can't control the tentacles. They come out like one or two comes out like a tail, and he couldn't like control them. But we see later on he finally gains control of it. But what else can he do? I don't know if he could do the ink thing before. That seemed like that was an accident. Allison's rumor abilities seems like she doesn't even have to say rumor this. Like she just has to think it. Like, I mean, I remember she like grew, like a lot of people's powers had advanced, I knew, but I didn't remember because I was like, yeah, because she had to say like rumor is before him, and now she's able to kind of do it at a distance and just like mind control someone. So we've seen advancements in that. Diego stopping all those bullets, which I'd actually completely forgotten until he did it later. I was like, right, like he did that in season, like in the season 2 finale, didn't he? I was like, right, I completely forgot Diego could do that. Even Victor's power is kind of similar, but it's not. It's shifted more so to, God, what was what's his face's powers from season 2/3? I forgot. Was it Harlan? His abilities. And Fly still seems to have his blink abilities, but whether or not he still has the power to time travel or not is unclear. I'm sure he's not really willing to test that right now. But as we see later on, it's kind of like his powers are fully combined, because the only place he's blinked to is what it seems to be a train station that acts as kind of a nexus point for, I don't know if it's all the timelines. Once again, who knows how many timelines have collapsed into this universe? Like, is it just one or two, or is it multiple ones? One where, hey, the Umbrella Academy existed, and one where it's like, oh, the Umbrella Academy didn't. So it seems like, once again, it's like some version of maybe the season 1 timeline kind of merged into this one, but also maybe some elements of what that timeline, well, because what they did in season 2 created the branch timeline for the end of season 2 / all of season 3. Which we did get some clarification, because they said the name Ray, which that's Allison's husband from like the 60s, from season 2. So I thought I remembered her, like, I couldn't remember if it was a dream or if it actually happened, her getting Claire back and being with Ray. But like, we just probably just not going to be in this season just because of how much smaller the season is. But it's like, yeah, they are together. So that kind of goes back to my point of, well, everything kind of amalgamated in this season. So I guess things between Vic and Missy, like I said, I think the name was Missy, if I remember correctly. Am I thinking Missy, or was it Sissy? I can't remember. That might be like I said, I'm so sorry. From season 2, Harlan's mom. Like, well, we know in the original timeline she had cancer and eventually died from it. So it could be that too. Once again, Vic has kind of been very dodgy about what his life has been. He's trying to be like, oh yeah, like, life is great, I got a bar and everything. It seems like, well, you don't seem like you're happy. But I mean, that's a point in contention for, because once again, Ben tried to make it seem like I did this for everyone's sake, but for Vic, it's like, no, I built a life for myself. This is an opportunity to get away from Dad, to get away from the past, not have to worry about my powers. I mean, the point that comes up again is like, what's the danger of having our powers? It's like, well, we did end the world 3 times. It's like, yeah, but we did save it 3 times, which even 5's like, yeah, dude, that's debatable, Diego. Whether we really, it's like, but it's like our powers have kind of fucked the world on multiple occasions. And it's like, yeah, that's 100% true. And it's also, out of anyone, Vic has the most trauma and complications associated with their powers. So, like, of course, it'd be kind of triggering. And even Ben kind of felt bad because he realized, like, right, I did kind of mess up. But it's like, yeah, I was just trying to help. Turns out the only person who isn't sick, well, Luther is feeling great. Well, we do see, like, he's still suffering some of the ramifications. We don't see him throwing up. He is a little sick, and it looked like he was going to shit himself later on. But Klaus is fine because Klaus never drunk it. But Klaus did toss it on top of someone. So the guy that passed by, I was like, am I stupid? Was that guy passing by Ben? That looked like that was like Ben. Because once again, that other timeline Ben was like, we're not going to go back to that post-credit situation, mid-credit, post-credit situation of season 3. I'm like, not unless that's going to be like at the very, very end, like, not unless like the back half of the season deals with that comes up in the most surprising way or something. I don't know. But for a second I was like, that person who walked by looked like they were Ben, but I was like, maybe I'm being crazy. But it's like, you toss it on someone. I guess as long as you don't ingest it, it's fine. Because I'm like, that's someone running around with powers that you've kind of left unchecked. So it feels like that could be a storyline element if it doesn't need to be internally inject, like you have to like take it internally. So as long as it just lands on you, you gain power. So who knows if that's going to be a storyline, if that was me just being crazy thinking that was Ben, but we'll have to wait to see if anything becomes of that. So Klaus managed to not get his powers back because he's like, hey, it's a slippery slope and that's going to turn into a whole shitty situation. So it's like, all right, well, we got to figure this whole thing out. Well, we know this is all tied to Cy's daughter, Jennifer. Let's go check out Cy. Oh, he's gone. Well, did he abandon ship? Was this a setup? Did he leave? Was he kidnapped? Oh, there's a map pointing us in a particular town direction. So it's like, hey, let's go there. Family road trip. It's like, yeah, family time together. It's great. And I love the whole Diego and Lila thing. It's like, hey, babe, like, let's do this. She's like, you know we have 3 kids, right? It's like, yeah, but your uncle's going to pick them up. He's like, babe, I don't complain. I love your family. I don't complain about it. She's like, you complain about it all the time. He's like, yeah, but this is my family. And it's like, well, Lila hasn't had an opportunity to spend a lot of time around the fam. She was around them a little bit in season 2. She was around them a little bit in season 3, except, the later parts when they're all kind of together. But it's like, hey, we're just casually living, and we've kind of haven't really been around each other a lot, probably a little here and there for the past 6 years. So come on, family road trip, everyone get in. And yeah, they're stuck listening to Baby Shark, which all these years later, I've never heard the extended version of Baby Shark. All I know is Baby Shark. That's the only thing I know about that song, and it went on, like going on and on and on, and I was like, oh, there's other lyrics to this song? I didn't know that. That's interesting. So that was fascinating, but apparently it's stuck, and they have to listen to it hours and hours on end on their road trip, and then eventually everyone starts projectile vomiting, and it ends up being a chain reaction setting off, and everyone's getting sick. Vic kind of explodes with his powers. So yeah, it's a lot. Oh, I also love the whole thing, like, yeah, let's go, first mission in forever. And Ben's like, yeah, let's go kill him. And then everyone just stops and turns on him and is like, it's a rescue mission. He's like, right, yeah. I was like, well, I guess maybe the Sparrow's main missions were always kill missions, more killed than rescues. So maybe that's where he's coming from. That's kind of usually his battle cry. He was just like, oh, you just don't fit in with this you're the oddball amongst this oddball family. We also have the Five and Diego conversation. So I love that he's like, yeah, it looked like some Greek dude with a creepy mustache. And Five's like, mustache? With the mustache was creepy? He's like, yeah, pencil thin. It's like, there's a lot of shade against pencil mustaches. It is kind of like a weird thing. I think only certain people are able to pull off that look. But I'm surprised he was able to recognize the pencil mustache, but not his own brother. I find that so hilarious. But it's like, to be fair, Diego is an idiot, so makes sense. But he thinks Lila's cheating on him, and I love Five's advice was just bury it deep. You have what the rest of us would kill to have. Like, you have a family and kids. Like, the only people who have that amongst us is you and Allison. And any other one of us would love to have that, to have someone don't throw that down the toilet. So it was not the best advice of just bury it deep, bury it under concrete. Sadly, Lila is hearing this because it's well, Five covered for her, but it's still the thing of knowing, oh, Diego's thinking I'm cheating to the point that he's following me. Where's the trust? It's yes, I've been lying to him. Once again, she probably doesn't want to admit that she wants a break away from the family, just like he does too, but maybe it's more he wants a break from oh, I just want time to myself, yada, 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 where she's just kind of yeah, I have to be a mom, and I also have to be a mom to Diego too, because I have to be the responsible adult. She even says, hey, if I don't tell you what to do, you're not going to do it. He's I take out the trash. It's oh, God. But so I think it's a lot more stressful for Lila. It's yeah, I want some excitement back. I mean, she lived her life, working on the handler, being her daughter. Then on top of that, you were a rocker for a long time. It's you had such a free-spirited life, and now you've kind of been, old ball and chain. It's kind of on the opposite side of the gender situation. It typically kind of gets stereotypically, it's oh yeah, the old ball and chain is the wife. Now it's in her case, the old ball and chain is the husband and kids and yada yada yada. So she's irritated with Diego because Diego thinks she's cheating, and he doesn't know that she knows that he thinks she's cheating. So that's not great. That's going to turn into a complicated mess. Took forever, but they made their way to the town, and seems oh, the town's celebrating. Ben ends up meeting someone, which I'm oh, Ben hasn't had a love life storyline situation since season 2. That whole thing didn't necessarily work out, but that was the last time Ben had a love interest, was season 2. So this Ben, who knows if he's ever been in love? I don't know if that was ever really covered. He's kind of a biggest sociopath of the squad, so he was kind of not really in a position for a love life situation last season. But he meets Rosie, which the actress, her name is Victoria Soal, and it was she looks so familiar. Skimming through her the little bit I was looking at, I was I don't think I've seen anything she's been in, but I could be mistaken. Just only saw some of the stuff she was in, listed. I saw some of the stuff listed, but I'm I don't think I've seen any of that, but I didn't take as deep of a dive. But she does look so familiar. I do love that she ultimately recognized Ben because she's like, "Oh my God, you're the Sparrow Bit guy," and it's like, "Hush, hush, hush." She's like, "Wow, you are a real piece of shit. You ruined a lot of people's lives. You know that scam." He's like, "It wasn't a scam. Crypto, it's risky business and yada yada yada." Trying to spin that stuff, but it is nice that, like I said, he kind of hits it off with Rosie, and you're like, okay, so that's going to be interesting to see where that goes because this is supposed to be a stopgap place, but it's like, well, this place is going to be significant to some point because it's like, is Sai here? Is Jennifer here? Some other things that came up, like I said, Five's blinking ability ended up taking him to that train station. Because I'm curious, is he going to blink? Anytime he blinks, will it always be there? Because it's the second time this episode. Because like when he initially blinked, he got there, and then it happened again. And like I said, the train station seems to be a nexus, like center, like fold, central system for like connecting the timelines. There's this conversation between Allison and Vic. It's like, oh, cool, we haven't really talked in a long time. It's like, well, the phone situation works two ways. And, at the end of the day, Vic's like, I know and totally understand why you did what you did. Like, hey, your life is working out great. Life's been good for me. But the fact of the matter is, we're not friends. And we don't have to make a big deal out of it. You can tell how much that hurt Allison. But Allison also has to think about, like, yo, you put Vic through a lot of shit. Like, you were mean last season. You were like, to be fair, like, Allison's always kind of had that mean girl attitude. But the sad thing is, they were on their way to repairing their relationship. Obviously, it got manipulated and contorted and complicated in season 1. But, like, they were in a much better place in season 2. And that all got ripped to shreds in season 3. Because Allison was on just her, like, warpath of she didn't care. She was angry. She was sad. And she was kind of taking a lot of that out on Vic. And, yeah, so, like, Vic got a lot of brunt of that. So it's kind of like, yeah, like, we're family and everything, cool, but our relationship is, maybe they'll be able to repair it, but you can tell, like, how much that hurts Allison, because that is the person she grew to become so close to in their family, and just for that to kind of be, like, split like that now is just kind of, like, the harsh reality of it. I love Luther's thing is the whole antiquing thing. It's like, oh, and just every time he says it's like, oh, Sloan would love this. You're just like, oh, that's it. Once again, it's like, because there are no other sparrows, it makes you go like, right, maybe she does exist in this timeline, because the end of season 3 was him going to go look for her, like, see if she exists in this timeline. So either she did and died, or she just never existed in the timeline, just like none of the other sparrows did, but they could be under different names and aliases type of thing. But all these years later, you thought Luther would have bent over backwards, probably did bend over backwards to find her. So if he never found her in those 6 years, probably gave up. So all he has is his antiquing, and his stripping job is actually doing well. That despite the customers running out and shrieking in horror upon seeing his real body after everything, it's still the thing of his boss is kind of, giving him a raise and stuff like that. So he's actually doing better work-wise. He's the only one that seemed to be benefiting from the whole getting their powers back thing. So. But I love this. In a matter of seconds, the entire town flips, because it turns into like a creepy, like almost Pleasantville type of thing of like, what the fuck is going on? And then people start pulling out guns and blasting. I was like, okay, cool. The entire town turns into a full-blown war zone and stuff like that. And I love Diego and Lila's argument back and forth for just let me do something on my own. And then, like, that was a pretty badass moment. He's cartwheeling in the air, like Magnetoing all the bullets, and then like rips everyone to shreds. And then Lila laser beams the last person, it feel like, it's like, well, because of like the gore, blood and gore, you're like, yeah, it felt like a Homelander move, just slicing someone in half. Ben and Rosie, because we find out that the sheriff of the town is the dude who raised her. He's like her step uncle. She's like, my parents died, which now you're like, well, did you have a Lila situation of like how Handler killed her parents? Like, are we going to find out like the same thing happened to Rosie's, who we find out her real name is Jennifer. So she's Jennifer. The whole Psy thing, David Cross's character was a plant. Like, this was they were aware of the Umbrella Academy because of the original timeline stuff and bleeding over into this timeline, and he was keeping an eye on them, so he must have just been a follower. I wonder, is he like a high-ranking member, or is he just like one of the followers they sent to perform that mission? So like, this is all bullshit. Sai isn't her actual father, because she did say like her parents are dead. So her parents did die, and Ben didn't think about that at the time, because he was like, oh, like, right, your real dad, like, maybe they lied. Well, to be fair, he didn't know she was Jennifer. He thought her name was Rosie. So it's just, but she's like, yeah, I changed my name just so like, if anyone comes bothering her looking for her, it's like, well, she has a fake name at work, so no one bothers her, which makes sense. But it turns out that Jennifer is the reason why she went missing, and the reason why they're like David Cross's character Sai was looking for her, because she's important. I'm assuming kind of like she must be special in the regard to like maybe the cleanse that they're talking about is actually her. Like maybe she's the cleanse personified. Like maybe she's going, like her power might more directly connect to time, even more so than Fives does. Like maybe there's something there. Because like when the car flips at the end of the episode, her and Ben's hands touch and something happens. We just don't know what. I don't know if like, not unless like we find out she's like connected to like the, because like the glow in her hands, it does. I mean, it's not the same shade. It looked like a darker shade, but it kind of reminded me of like the Marigold. So it's like, could she be like a body that produces it? Like if you've seen Mission Yosakura Family, I'm saying that because I'm currently watching it. So there's kind of something like that for the Yosakuras. There's something in like the head of the Yosakuras. Their blood can give like powers and things, kind of like the Marigold. So I'm curious, like, is that what Jennifer's thing is? Like she pump, like does she produce the Marigold, and then is that why their father, Reginald, wants her? Because it turns out the people in that town are part of his, like, it's kind of like some, God, what was the exact wording that was used? It's like they had some kind of uniform on, but they're kind of like a security force for Reginald. So it's like, so it is in fact all connected, because Gene and Jean are connected to all this because they happen to show up later on to kidnap Jennifer. And so this all correlates and connects to Reginald, because they thought like, oh, he had nothing to do with their lives, but it's like maybe he's just been secret. I mean, maybe that's also how they became aware of the Umbrella Academy, because like, well, this is a Reginald from the Sparrow timeline who remembers meeting the Umbrella Academy in the 60s and shifting everything, and he remembers the original universe reboot. He probably even remembers dying, most likely. So that's probably why he was like, well, I can't find her, but maybe this will, like, that's the begs the question, then who hid her all this time then? Maybe he was hiding her? Maybe the Gene and Jean thing is separate. Maybe they aren't fully, like, maybe like the keepers have nothing to do with Reginald. I mean, yeah, because they were, to be fair, it's like, yeah, they were also against, like, they were pointing out stuff about, and they were keeping an eye on Reginald. So the keepers are manipulating the Umbrella Academy into getting her. So I makes you wonder, would they eventually have a confrontation with their father soon enough about this, because he's going to be the one that has some answers about all this, considering like that town. So that probably, yeah, because that, yeah, so like Sai definitely works for the keepers. He's not working with Reginald. Like, so I think in my head I was conflating them as similar organizations, but like I said, I do believe them to be two separate organizations. So what significance Jennifer has, what she did to Ben in that moment begs the question. Especially if she ends up being a cleanse type of situation. It's like, well, what does that mean for Ben? Like, if she cleanses something, like, it's supposed to be all about resetting everything and kind of turning things back to the original timeline. So what would that mean for Ben, who's from a different timeline? You know, I mean, at least some version of these characters would exist in the original timeline, obviously, but, and they're, most of them, with the exception of Ben, are from the original timeline before things changed. So they're the only ones who remember everything. So what would happen to them? Would they kind of hard reset to back to who they were in season 1, or would they kind of pull a season 3 and yeah, the timeline resets, but they will remember everything? Once again, Ben continues to be the paradox, because he's not from their original timeline. He's not their Ben. He's a Ben from an alternate timeline, but Ben was already a part of that, but that Ben was also dead. There's layers to this, and I'm curious to see how that all plays out. Sadly, Klaus got shot and it's like they had no choice but to use the Marigold to bring him back. Because it's like, right, they were about to lose their brother, but luckily he's okay. So it's like, oh, good. Granted, it's going to be a slippery slope for him, and it begs the question: how has his powers changed? I mean, we saw how they advanced last season because of him being able to go to the afterlife and stuff like that, having even more control of the dead in connection with the dead than even previously. So it begs the question: what's changed about that? And also, like, sadly, it was a family decision. Like, everyone unanimously was like, yo, let's do this. And Allison's going to get the brunt of it because her and Klaus have gotten the closest recently. And that's even Klaus being like, yeah, like, I'm like being a good uncle. Like, I'm someone that Claire actually likes and stuff. So, and for Allison, it's like, all right, she was expressing like, yo, Klaus doesn't want this and wouldn't want this. But like, once again, they all want to save their brother. And now it's like, he's going to harbor probably some feelings towards her, especially if he goes off the deep end. It's going to be like, well, that's going to be on the entire family, but Allison's going to personally feel responsible considering she's the one that directly gave him the Marigold. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.